A new 2024 poll has Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis leading President Joe Biden nationally, with Haley up 12 points at 56% versus Biden at 44%, and DeSantis at 51% versus Biden at 49% comparatively.
As for the competition between Biden and Donald Trump, the same poll has Trump ahead of Biden by 2 points at 51% and Biden at 49%. So no matter what way you cut it, things are not looking good for Joe Biden right now. Perhaps The Rock is going to step up, perhaps RFK Jr. I think the Democrats really need to get their stuff together and find someone other than Joe Biden to be the candidate, not just because he's old, but because he's lost support from key constituencies that Democrats rely on. To see him being beat by Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, who are polling so far behind Donald Trump, is absolutely insane and just demonstrates how terribly unpopular the president is.
Right. I think it would be a huge dereliction of duty on behalf of the Democrats to not replace Biden at this point. And I also wanted to just talk a little bit about the popularity of Nikki Haley, because it kind of confounds me. And some of these polls, I know a lot of them are very consistent with Trump leading in the battleground states against Joe Biden, but with Nikki Haley apparently winning even more significantly than Trump in places like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, it really makes me question the legitimacy of these polls, because I just can't wrap my head around that. The idea that, you know, the formerly blue wall that went from Obama to Trump would be voting for Nikki Haley more aggressively over Trump in 2024 is bizarre. Her last debate performance was interesting, to say the least. She afterwards went on the Ruthless podcast and was accusing her opponent, Vivek Ramaswamy, of having a problem with women because he rightfully criticizes the fact that she took tons of money from Boeing by sitting on their board after leaving her position as the UN ambassador. And she has this line she keeps repeating about how her heels are not a fashion statement, they're ammunition, and literally nobody knows what it means, because it means nothing. I mean, half of her platform is warmongering and the other half is reminding everyone that she's a woman. And so I've seen so many people point to these polls as proof that she should be the nominee. And I just, one, can't abide by the idea that she's really leading by that much against Joe Biden, and particularly in these battleground states. And two, I think it's been proven time and again that when you nominate someone in a primary based on who you think is the most electable, you will almost always get burned by that.
That exchange between Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy should be enough to disqualify her for president. The way that Vivek said you're a Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels, and she corrected him by saying they're 5-inch heels. She doesn't care about the Dick Cheney part. So she's Dick Cheney in spirit, and she's apparently wearing pumps made by Raytheon. I don't understand how her heels can be munition. Is she throwing them at people? If so, when? I would like to see this very much. I think the reason that she is polling ahead of Biden in a general matchup is because people are not watching the debates, is because people are not assessing her policy platforms. She has the curse, as many neoliberal and neoconservative politicians have, of seeming smart. This apparently qualifies you to be president in the United States of America. It is very dangerous because it's not smart at all to continue on with this kind of interventionist military strategy that the United States has had. It is not smart to continue on with the neoconservative way of running the economy that has left most Americans living paycheck to paycheck. It is absolutely absurd. None of her policies serve the self-interest of the American people, but they like that she seems smart. They like that she seems even-keeled. But if you would watch her in the debates, you would find out that neither of those things are true. And I think that's the real crisis here, is that once people actually get to know Nikki Haley, I don't think she'll be as popular anymore.
Yeah, exactly, which is why I think it's a boneheaded move to try to prop her up as the alternative to Trump, because she's so electable. I mean, we have this woman who is on the debate stage talking about how horrible the national debt and deficit is, while she wants to start a war with Iran and has been in favor of pretty much every war in the past 20 to 30 years, as if those are not helping to run up the national deficit. And then she wants to punish working class Americans by raising the retirement age under Social Security when, again, she is partially responsible for the running up of the deficit. She didn't leave Boeing's board because she objected to any part of the military-industrial complex. She left Boeing's board because she was mad that they took COVID relief funds. And everyone keeps talking about Nikki Haley's so-called foreign policy experience, which consists of her being UN ambassador, which is literally a fake job. You show up to the UN, you're given a script to read, and you're told when to raise your hand and when to put it down. That doesn't qualify as foreign policy experience. But unfortunately, per the Financial Times, Nikki Haley is impressing donors on the Wall Street Circle with her, quote, muscular foreign policy and positive view of America. She just had a productive series of New York City meet and greets with investors and bankers who are looking to coalesce around a single Trump alternative, which I guess kind of tells you everything you need to know, that classically the Republican establishment and the donors who prop it up are more than happy to have another warmonger in office.
Right. Not Trump does not automatically qualify you to be president. I'm sorry. It's just absurd that you have these members of the conservative party, which I used to respect this idea of conservatism. I used to identify as a conservative. I think that a lot of people vote conservative because they agree with the message of, you know, if you work hard, you should do well in this country. There shouldn't be any handouts, right? This is the narrative that they're told. They're for freedom. They appreciate the Constitution. That is not the kind of neoconservatives that are represented by the majority of the Republican Party today. Those are not the majorities of that's not the majority of conservatives serving in government today. Really, we've gotten so far away from the original idea of conservatism that there are no candidates that represent that currently in the presidential field for the Republicans. Many of them are warmongers. Many of them are doubtful that our democratic process is intact. And you have really limited folks to choose from because the remainder are people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who reminds me of an iPad kid. He's an iPad kid gone wrong. He's made all of this money. He's really aligned himself with tech, and he calls out everyone for their corporate interests. He calls out Nikki Haley for being affiliated with Boeing. And he's someone who's made a fortune in corporate America who doesn't understand what life is like for everyday working people. And I don't really see anyone qualified for being president on the Republican or within the Democratic Party. It's really sad that that's the state we're in. But I think just being an alternative to Trump isn't enough. You need a policy platform. You need to address the dire needs of the American people because the tensions in our country are being caused by the parties pulling people in opposite directions when really most people want to retire, they want to live a good life, they want to work 40 hours a week and be able to put food on the table, send their kids off to have a good life, and just make ends meet. That's what most people want, and most people don't have that in this country. And they're desperate for getting it, but it seems no candidates have a plan to bring that America back.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out as well that the conservatism that you're referring to, the sort of like fully, free market, libertarian, whatever, was really a hijacking of conservatism from libertarians. And conservatism at its core, when it was founded, was really about bolstering the middle class. It was about trying to secure the common good. And it wasn't this sort of anti-populist, freedom at all costs kind of libertarian movement that it became and then got coupled with this neoconservative warmongering. It's really been bastardized to a really unfortunate extent. And your point about the working class is a good one and reminded me of actually one of the only debate moments that I appreciated this last time around from none other than Tim Scott, shockingly, who I don't agree with on much. He was asked about this raising of the retirement age for Social Security. And he started his response by saying, if you talk to an Iowa farmer, and everyone cut the clip there and started making fun of him for bringing up Iowa farmers in response to Social Security. But his point was sound because what he went on to say was that if you are someone who does physical labor for a living and you're 60 to 65 years old and you've been doing backbreaking work every single day for basically your entire life, raising the retirement age a couple of years sounds like no big deal for someone who collects checks from Boeing But it is a big deal for someone who does physical labor and basically gives their body up so that they can make money and provide for their families. That couple of years could be the difference between them retiring happily or being dead or disabled. So I appreciate that he made that point when none of the other Republicans on that stage were willing to speak out for real working folks for whom raising the retirement age is fine from a mathematically sound standpoint, but affects real people.
Yeah, these are policies that are popular among the working class, popular among voters, popular among the middle class, but unfortunately not popular among the political class seeking election. We're going to continue to follow this and how things shift in the polls. More rising after this.